Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. The nation's highest-ranked high school quarterback lives right here in North Carolina, and he's suing the state over name, image, and likeness restrictions. It all goes back to a bill passed in the state legislature last year as the larger conversation about NIL deals continues. WRAL Sports Investigative reporter Brian Murphy is here to walk us through this lawsuit and how we got here. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So who is Faison Brandon, the quarterback who's at the center of this lawsuit?
Well, he's the number one, as you said, the number one quarterback recruit in the country for the class of 2026. So he has 2 years left to play high school football at Grimsley High School in Greensboro. And because he is in a public school in North Carolina, he is prohibited from profiting off his name, image, and likeness. And so, as you might imagine, the number one recruit in the country would have lots and lots of opportunities to profit off their name, image, and likeness. And so his mother, on behalf of him, has sued the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction in North Carolina to get this policy overturned. He cannot sue for monetary damages, so he's not asking for any money. He just wants this rule policy. It's not really a law, but this policy overturned so that he can then profit off his name, image, and likeness.
Right. And, I worked in Greensboro before I came here to WRAL, and Grimsley is a really good program in state football. What is the background of this Senate Bill 452 and the North Carolina High School Athletic Association's policies around NIL? Yeah,
so the state lawmakers have been angry and feuding with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association for a couple of years now. And this has to do with lots and lots of different issues. But largely many to do with eligibility, transgender students, some rules that the NCHSAA made about who could play after there was a fight, and some suspensions, some money that the association has collected over the years and whether that's being used properly. So there has been a lot of back and forth between the association and state lawmakers, and the state lawmakers over the last couple of years have gradually and then more quickly stripped authority away from the High School Athletic Association and given that authority over eligibility standards, over transfer policies, over name, image, and likeness to the State Board of Education. And so before they did this, the High School Athletic Association said, no, it's okay. Name, image, and likeness policy can go into effect. Students will be able to profit off it. And before that policy even got into effect, state lawmakers said, nope. Took that ability to make that policy away from the Athletic Association and gave it to the state board. And then in June of this year, the State Board of Education decided they would prohibit all anyone who competes in the public school association from profiting off their name, image, and likeness.
Gotcha. And you talked a little bit about the basic complaint that Brandon and his mother are making. What's sort of the context? I mean, we talked about that he's the top recruit. What are his plans after high school, and are they making a case for how that might affect his plans, I guess?
Yeah, he plans to go to Tennessee. He committed to Tennessee over NC State. Those were the top two. He's a tall quarterback, 6'4". He only started last year as a junior or as a sophomore, was his first year, and obviously exploded onto the national scene. They're not making the case that this will impact his future, but what like where he goes to college.
Yeah.
They're making the case, and I was just reading the lawsuit, a prominent national trading card company came to him with a deal that said, if you sign all this memorabilia, we'll give you X. Mm-hmm. And X in this case is over $1 million.
Wow. Life-changing money.
Yeah. The lawsuit alleges that this money would give not only Faison Brandon, but his family financial security for years to come. But he's unable to sign that contract or fulfill that contract because of this rule that's in place. He wouldn't be able to play for his high school football team. He would be ruled ineligible and unable to play. And so that is the chief complaint. The technical legal argument they're making is that the state law, which we talked about, gave the State Board of Education the authority to regulate name, image, and likeness. It did not give them the authority to prohibit name, image, and likeness. That regulate connotates an ability that someone will be allowed to do something, but within these certain regulations.
Right. There should be sort of limits is what they're saying, maybe, but that it should exist.
Right. They're saying the state law does not give you the ability to prohibit it. It gives you the ability to regulate it, which simply by the word regulation means that some activity is ongoing or happening. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be one. I don't know the legal merits of the case, but that is the legal argument they're making. And they're saying, hey, this has to happen quickly. We need this policy overturned quickly because every day that passes is one less day that Faison Brandon is in high school and able to have this status as the number one high school recruit in the country. And he plans to graduate at the end of December 2025. So he really only has, a year and a half left for this to happen. And so you've got to get rid of this policy so that he can then start using his name, image, and likeness.
All right, let's take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back. So, Brian, before the break, as we were talking about this lawsuit, what the rules are for the NCHSS or HSAA, I noticed you mentioned public school a lot because that is the governing body for public high school sports. But there's a different governing body for private schools. What are the rules there? Yeah,
so the NCHSAA, which is the public school body, also includes some parochial schools. So there are a few somewhat private schools in that, and that's the vast majority of high school athletes, high schools here in the state.
Okay.
There's also a private school association, the North Carolina Independent School Athletic Association, and they made different rules. Their rules are that players can profit off their name, image, and likeness.
Interesting.
And there is another highly touted recruit in the state, David Sanders Jr., I believe is his name. He's a 5-star offensive tackle. He's also going to Tennessee, so very similar to this other case. He is allowed to profit off his name, image, and likeness. He has an entire website dedicated to merchandise that he's selling with his picture on it, the fact that he committed to Tennessee on it. We've also seen, and I don't want to say that this is directly related, but we've seen Kendry Harrison, another really good high school athlete, transfer from public school to private school in the state. Now, his family has said that is not related to NIL, but when you realize that you can make a lot of money, we're talking about in this case over $1 million playing for a private school that you can't make playing for a public school, that may lead you to make different decisions about where you want to attend high school.
Right. And how is it that the private school association is able to have these rules and not go by the ones that the General Assembly put on NCHSAA? Yeah, well, the General Assembly didn't pass a law. They simply delegated this authority to the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education not in charge of those private schools. I see.
So they're only in charge of the public schools. They're only tasked with making these policies for the public school association, not the private school association. So they can have different rules when it comes to all manners of things. In this case, they have a different rule when it comes to NIL. Got it.
And how do these two cases here in our state compare to the state of NIL for high schoolers around the country?
I don't know about public-private school divides.
Sure.
But I do know that 38 states plus the District of Columbia allow high school athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness. So this is, you'll remember 3 years ago in July of 2021, the NCAA changed its rules and said, our old amateur rules are dead. Players can profit off their name, image, and likeness. And we've seen this explosion over the last 3 years. That's trickled down to the high school level, where states have said, you know what, you're an American, you're born with, certain rights. And one of those rights is your own right to publicity, your own right to your name, image, and likeness, and nothing or very limited cases should you lose that right. Mm. And so this has really spread, some of it competitively, right? We don't want to lose our athletes to South Carolina or Georgia or Florida. You can imagine in the Southeast, they're pretty competitive about keeping their football players. But most states across the country have allowed this, and North Carolina has been a little bit behind on this issue.
So with all of this in mind, what are the next steps for this lawsuit?
Yeah, the state board says this is only a temporary rule. This is a temporary rule that was put into place for the 24-25 academic year school calendar, that they're working on a lengthier process to decide what a more permanent rule is going to be, and they hope to have that permanent rule in place for 25-26. Again, Faison Brandon, that's too late for me.
Yeah.
That's costing me upwards of $1 million here. I don't know. I don't know how quickly this lawsuit will make its way through. The court is often very slow, but a temporary injunction could come into place, pretty quickly if the judge agrees that this is harming the quarterback and his family. The state board also meets in early September. I don't expect that they would make a drastic, U-turn on this policy after only a couple of months, but it's possible that the legal pressure combined with publicity and other things decide, hey, we're probably going this direction anyhow. Let's just let it happen. So there's a lot of different ways this could go. I think my thinking is in the end, eventually, at some point, high school athletes, really star high school athletes, are going to be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness in the state of North Carolina at a public school. Just when will that happen? Will it be too late for some of the current players? Possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email that's waiting in your inbox every morning with local news, events, and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.